Okay, so I before making actually the film Chicken with Plum, I wrote the book Chicken with Plum. That was a comic book. They call it now the graphic novel, and I was talking very much about Iranian Revolution and the Iranian War, etc., etc. And I thought that it was something missing about the Iranian love story. So the base of that was that is the story from Attar, the great Iranian poet, how Attar became actually a poet and how he became a Sufi. So apparently he was in the bazaar, and Attar is the one who sells the perfume. So a man came and said, Attar, you should give me some money. And Attar said, no, I won't give it to you. So no, I need some money. And at the end, Attar tell him, so what would you do if I don't give you the money? So the man say, I will lie down here and I will die. And so Attar, in disbelief, he said, okay. So the man lies down there and he dies. And that is where he has like a light in his life. And that is after that he quits the shop and the business, and he became the big poet. This is what I read. And I always had the feeling that at one point, if there is no will or any wish to live, then one can die just by deciding that they don't want to be alive. And what is the best reason, to die if it is not for love? Because it is true. It's not true when people, they say we are equal in front of everything. We are even not equal towards death. When you are more rich, for example, you can die in a much more peaceful way. You can have nurses, people taking care of you, giving the right medicine, etc., etc. Then when you're poor, you don't have this kind of thing. But we are all equal towards the pain of love, no matter where we come from, no matter how much money we have. When our heart is broken, our heart is broken, and that is no money, nothing that can actually arrange that. So I based myself on the story of my mother's uncle, who was a great musician. And he died for some unknown reasons. He was a very good guitar player, so I had to change it to violin, because I did not have any French actor who could actually play the guitar, because they have a very unusual way of playing with the string that is not like a guitar or anything like that. So I changed it to a violin for this reason. And apparently when he was playing in his garden in Tehran, it would be traffic jam, because, the cars would stop just to listen, to the beautiful sound of his guitar. And, but he died, just like I said, in a mysterious way. And I tried to imagine what could that be. And in the Iran of the 50s, the story of Romeo and Juliet was still something possible. I think today it is in any conservative society, when that is the family who decide who you can marry, who you cannot marry, in which way, etc. This kind of drama always happen. Now we have the luxury in the modern world actually to decide who we are going to marry or divorce, or whatever, love or not love. But at the time, and even I guess today, it was not this easy. And I just tried to imagine what would be his reason of dying. And I think the biggest reason of dying, is the notion of losing the pleasure. And little by little, during these 8 days, from the second that he decides to die until he dies, he just loses the pleasure one after the other. And at the end, he gives up. And the last pleasure that he loses is actually the pleasure of eating, which is quite incredible, because that is our instinct. But the day that even the eating does not give you any pleasure, this is a little bit the end of it. So also I wanted a lot to talk about the notion of pleasure, because we also live in a world, where at the time I had the feeling that they were going to tell me that if I made like this and this sport, and I eat this and this yogurt, and like, I don't know, I drink vegetable juice, and I don't smoke, and I do all this thing, eventually I'm not going to die, which is absolutely not true, because we're all going to die, no matter how many green juice we drink and how many yogurt we eat. We end up dying. And not only that, we have to become old, because this is the only way we can accept actually this notion of dying. Little by little we lose the control of our body. Little by little everything gets destroyed. And actually, they becoming old is a preparation for death. So this is not something we should fight, because it's like a lie that we say to ourselves. And also this whole idea that we have to give a very healthy body to this ground. Why? I mean, if I'm going to die, I hope that my body is so rotten and so destroyed that even the worms in the ground don't want to eat me. This is why I keep on smoking and I keep on doing whatever I like to do, because I really don't feel like giving fresh meat to the worms. Actually, if I'm going to die, better I die for one reason. So it has a lot to do with the theme of death, which is actually my obsession in life, and how could it not be? And I think a beautiful love story. So this is what I had to say for the beginning of this project. So basically, this is the first feature film that I made with real actors. So there are some mistakes, there's some kind of, you can see that I'm still not I had to learn a lot. So there's some part of the movie that I watch and I'm like, oh my God, why did I do that? But I do that for this film and any other thing that I do in my life. I'm never satisfied. But I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm extremely happy to answer to all your questions.
Thank you. We do have a few questions coming in. So one viewer asks, how close is this storyline to your real life? Was the girl whose name was Iran a symbolism for all the folks who have left Iran and loved ones after the revolution? And there are a few other questions about the significance of the name Iran in the character.
Well, obviously, Iran actually is a female name in Iran. Is France is a French name meaning France, and female, they are called this way. And obviously I use this name because that was a parallel between losing the love of your life and losing the country that I have lost. No matter where you come from, no matter how other people they consider this place, you're still born, and even the geography of this place is unique. And even the way the sun shines, or like the quality of the air, and like the color of the sky is not the same everywhere. The sun does not have the same brightness everywhere. This is not true. So it's something. This is something that has been taken from me. I mean, I have taken it from me myself, because I decided to write Persepolis, and I knew that as a result I could not go back to my country. And this is a country that I love a lot, because, as I say, it's just something instinctive. I've grown up there, and I grew up, waking up, seeing this huge mountain of Alborz, 5,700 meters, in front of my eyes, and, this very polluted city of Tehran, and, the heights, and, it's kind of theater of surrealism, everywhere you go, it's something completely surrealistic happening, because in this chaos, in this something that is called, like a dictatorship, you have a kind of a anarchy that is just where everything under this dictatorship is still possible. So, you have to break the rules in order to be able to be alive. So it is something very exciting and vivid. So, yeah. So it was very important to call this woman's name Iran, because I think from all the work that I did, the character that is closest to me is Nasser Ali Khan, is actually the protagonist of the film. And as he was a man, and as he was a musician, etc., that was much easier for me to hide myself behind him, because as soon as I put a female character, then everybody makes a connection with me. It was for me much easier to hide behind the man.
Thank you. Actually, there is a similar question to where you left off, where someone asks, how might the story have been different if the main character was a woman instead of a man, which you briefly touched on?
Yes, because, I don't believe, now is a whole fashion, like in Hollywood, that, like, for example, if you write a script and that is female talking, then the female writers, they have to write, what the females they're saying, which I think it goes against any idea of literature. Literature does not have any gender, I mean, I don't think necessarily because you're a woman, you understand a woman very well, and because you're a man, you understand a man very well. The best example for that, I've always said it, is that like, I read somebody like Flaubert. Flaubert, he writes Madame Bovary, and Flaubert was a man who almost did not know any women. And when he described Madame Bovary, even with all her pathetic side and everything, I can actually identify to this woman, even with her pathetic side. It's something, about, the way, she thinks something and is not true, and she believes in something, and eventually she ends up dying, out of a love that she has created in her own brain, that is all made by herself. But I identify to this character extremely easily. And then I read, for example, Anais Nin, who is like the big author, of feminism, and she has this husband and she cheats on him, and she has all this love affair, and every time she goes somewhere, all the man, they immediately they're in love with her. They have a great erection. The making love goes perfectly well. Everything is fantastic. I don't know, she never smelled under her armpit, nothing. This woman is not me. So I cannot identify to what Anais Nin writes. So I have always been extremely suspicious about, if I was a woman, I had to talk about a woman, etc., etc. And it was for me very important after Persepolis, when I talk really about me, myself, my childhood, my adolescence, my youth, blah, 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 to talk actually about a character that would be asked for from me as being a man, with 4 children, and being a musician, and, being a little bit on the depressive side, which is everything that is not me. But it was also a liberation. And I think if the story that was a woman, probably it would be the same. Maybe the sufferance would be, the expression of the sufferance would be somehow different. I don't know.
Thank you. A viewer comments, beautiful movie. I loved it. Thank you. Did you consider having Iran recognize Nasser at the end? That was a heartbreaking exchange.
Well, she recognized him, but she pretends she does not recognize him, because it is always like that. If she, she goes and she marries somebody else and she has a grandchild. So she has taken, the decision. And if she says she recognizes him, that means her whole life is under a question mark. And this is impossible. This is extremely difficult, to live. And for him, the fact that she does not recognize him means he has been suffering so many years for no reason. Because, she suffered for somebody who did not recognize him, but actually she did. But it's a little bit the story of Romeo and Juliet, she thinks he's dead, and then he thinks she's dead, etc. This is like the basis of drama, I think.
Thank you. A viewer writes, if you don't mind sharing, you mentioned that when you watch Chicken with Plums, there are a few mistakes that you find to be glaring. From a viewer's perspective, the movie appears seamless. When you watch the movie, what strikes you as a mistake or as something amateurly done?
Everything looks like a mistake, but any work that I do, for me, from the beginning until the end, for me, I have only done mistake, because, like with the distance, I always say, oh, that one, I could have done it this way. Why didn't I put the camera there? Why this sentence was say the same thing? But it's the same thing, for my books. I read one time Persepolis back, and I thought it was crap. And I read it and I was like, this is really bad stuff. I could have made a much better work. It's always the same, that I could have. No, but the thing is that I always have the satisfaction of knowing that at the time that I do something, I actually do it with all my heart, and I do the best I can at this moment. The thing also is that in your life you progress. I mean, thank God, like that life has some kind of meaning. So this progress makes that, next time you do something, you're more careful about details, etc., etc. But, it's the insatisfaction. And at the same time, it's a good thing to be insatisfied, because if you're satisfied, then you think that you're the center of the world, and then that is the end of everything.
Another viewer asks, what was your transition from writing novels to films? How does filmmaking differ, and do you have a preference between them?
Well, from writing, I mean, first of all, I never ever wanted to be a director. Never. It was not my plan. I've always been, a cinephile. I always loved to go to cinema. I always, because this is this moment, and really going to the theater, actually sitting 2 hours, in this dark room, because you have an energy when you see people with a film with other people, you have like an energy that invades the whole place. So you're actually, taken by this energy. But, from liking stuff, until doing them, it's a huge way. I like watching astronauts to go to space too, but, I don't go to the space. So it happened that, the husband of a friend of mine, he wanted to become a producer. And so he said, oh, what about we make Persepolis into a film? And I was like, no, this is not a good idea, because, I have worked 4 years on making the books. So why would I change the narration on something that I have been concentrated on for such a long time? I have to think it in another way to make it a film. And then normally, when you make adaptation, the adaptation of a book is never good. The adaptation of the book made by the author is like horror. It's almost never good. So really, I was like, why doing it? Because at the end, I'm going to make the worst film, in the history of human beings. And at the same time, you have this little Jiminy Cricket voice that is, in you, which is telling me, they're going to pay you for you to learn something new. Normally you pay to learn. So now they were going to pay me. And I was like, it was like they give you a great toy, to a kid. And they say, oh, would you like to play with it? Yes, of course. But I didn't have any notion of anything. So for me, it was really like diving into the ocean without knowing how to swim. So trying to reach the shore and at the same time learning to swim and to breathe, etc., with the fear that is going to be the worst film in the world. But eventually, when you're so scared that something really bad happened, it's never as bad as you think. And I think I had this thing to really put the book aside and think, like, how would I make it as a film? Now, the thing is that the narration, the way you tell the story in a book format and the way you do it in a film is completely different. So it's another mindset. Now, naturally, I'm a very solitarian person. I really like to be alone. I mean, I can say something that will sound arrogant, but I really enjoy my own company. I'm really happy with myself. It's like I don't need so much, to see different kind of people. So writing books in a way is great because, I'm me with myself. I work when I want, when I don't want. And there is no money involved. I can buy, the best Japanese paper and the best ink of blah, blah. And at the end, with $500, I have all the material to make you two books, no problem. For a film, it's not even, a fraction of a second, this $500 is nothing. So, and as soon as you have money, the people that give money, of course, they have something to say because, they have given you all this money. So, it's a work that has to be done with other people. Now, before that, I always work in a very solitarian way, and I really did not know that I would actually enjoy working with other people. But at the beginning, I say it was not easy because also it was an animated film, and an animation film takes for a long time. It takes forever. You have to draw them one by one. It's 12 images per second. It's 5,400 seconds. So you just multiply to realize how many pictures you have to make one by one. So at the beginning, when I started doing this film, oh my God, I hated everybody that I was working with, to the point I was like, God, kill them. So I don't have to say hello to them every morning. I'm a smoker. So, already in the morning, I'm not in good mood to start with. And then, this hello is really not my style. And the moment that I stopped hating them and I really realized that actually people, they don't want to steal my style and just say hello and, it was almost the end of the project. And I realized that actually when you work with people, they give you all their talent, all their energy, their interpretation of the story. And to tell you the truth, is something that I would prefer in making films, because movies in general, I think movies, they're a machine for creating compassion and empathy. I think with movies, actually, you can change the world. One of the reasons America became such a big power is, with the American way of life. I don't think it's because I think you have the best way of living, but the way you showed it to us, in all these American films, we saw all these beautiful women with these beautiful dresses and the big house and and they were going here and there. So the American way of life was actually imposed because of the American films. So, it's culturally is extremely deep. And there are lots of people that don't have the patience of reading a book, but everybody can watch a film. You sit 1.5 hours, 2 hours, you watch a movie, and that is very easy. So it's a machine of creating compassion. And then also I have the notion of surprise. Because when I make my book, you can imagine that at the end, I don't really look at my book and say, oh, how surprising, great, what a great thing I did, how interesting. I never say these things because I did it all myself. When I make a film, there's so many things that are not in my control. The director of photography would imagine something, the actor would propose something, somebody else, the editor will do something. And at the end, I have something that is not completely in my control. And I love this notion of surprise. And I love that at the end, I have done something that is me, but is also many other people that were involved in. Jesus, that was a long answer, but I needed to develop.
Thank you. There are a few questions about Nasser Ali's character. One viewer says, Nasser Ali had many nasty characteristics. Do you really identify with him? And then a second viewer, a follow-up question. A viewer says, I found it rather difficult to sympathize with the main character. Does losing a love make him selfish, self-centered, and uncaring? If he had been less so, might he have been able to continue taking some pleasure in life?
I think the thing is that she sees this woman who does not recognize him, and that is the end of his life. I think he has a broken heart. I think he marries the wrong woman. He's in the wrong life. I think all of that. Does that make out of him? I think he's not sympathetic one bit. And I think I like him very much because of that, because he does not try, to be sympathetic. He doesn't try to be nice. At one point he gives up and he decides to die, and then he dies. And I think when you become to this level, talking about sympathy, it's really not his problem. It has been a moment when he was a very nice man. But that is what is the most interesting, because saying somebody is nasty, yes, people, they're nasty. But what I'm trying to show is that what makes a person become nasty. This is much more interesting. And in his nastiness, I like him because I know that everything that made him become this not very nice man, all of them, there are noble reasons. All of them, they're very emotional reasons. All of them, they're beautiful reasons. But all these beautiful reasons break him so much that he becomes the man that he becomes. So yes, he's not very lovable. But I don't know, I always have this tendency to like very much the not lovable people. I don't know, I have an attraction for them.
Thank you. A viewer says, can you say a bit more about the title of the film? And then maybe kind of related to that, another viewer asks why French is the main language of the film instead of Farsi.
Well, the title of the film, I told you, I said in the introduction, I think we die the day that we lose the pleasure of living. And one of the most vivid things in the pleasure of living is actually eating. You have to breathe, you have to eat, and you have to sleep. Without these three, you cannot survive. You can survive with anything else. If they don't exist, it's okay. But you need to sleep, drink, breathe, and eat. So basically that's it. So I think this is the moment that his wife prepares him his favorite dish, that is this chicken with plum. And in my family, that was this uncle who always, when it arrived to this Olu, the plum, he always say, oh, these are the breasts of Sophia Loren. Give me some of the Sophia Loren breast, because that was like the best of the best, the top, like the best thing that you could have. So that was because of that. As I just put the name of this food that I like very much, Olu Mosamad. I think we make it very much in the north of Iran. I'm not sure in other part of Iran they eat it as much as we do, but it used to be one of my favorite dishes, and I think it's one of my family favorite dishes. So this is because of that. I forgot the second question.
Sorry, the second question was about why the film was in French instead of Farsi.
But you know, the whole history of cinema is about that. I don't think that Spartacus was actually speaking in American, and I don't think that Mozart spoke in English neither. You know, the whole thing is you just take a story. Now I work in France, and I have to work with people that I can work with. And you know, I cannot work with Iranian actor because I have my reputation. So Iranian actor, they cannot play with me because otherwise I cannot go back to the country first. The one that are in outside, there are not so many. So I don't have the choice between huge amount of great actor that I can hire. Then I made Persepolis in French. And I think it's a love story. It can work in any other language. But I'm also aware that the situation of the world has changed. I mean, things that we used to do, you know, like, I don't know, anybody could play any role. Now it has changed and people, they want authenticity and all of that. But at the time that I made Chicken with Plum, it was still possible, you know, to have people speaking another language. I think the language is just a tool, actually. I use it, you know, in a way of making the story the most palpable, the most understandable by a majority of people. Therefore, you know, my latest film, Marie Curie, is made in English. I mean, Marie Curie, she's Polish and she speaks French. Nevertheless, you can easily make it in English because, you know, the story is not just a French story. It's an international story. And I think a love story is nothing more international than a love story.
Thank you. A viewer comments, I love this movie so much. A tragedy that is also laugh out loud funny. It reminded me of the French film Portrait of a Lady on Fire and also of The Lighthouse, both of which treated the same subject with pathos and horror. How did you decide to make this a comedy?
Well, I think that, you know, this notion of non-stop sadness does not exist. You know, like nobody is sad all the time and nobody is happy all the time. I've always tried to make anything that I do look like the real life. And in the real life, you know, is everything but black and white. It's everything that is in between. In every worst, you know, sadness, you always have a moment, you know, like that, you know, it becomes a joke because it's inappropriated, because things happen, you know, it's always like that. And so is in the happiness. So I think in cinema in general, you know, looking too much for a style, if you look too much for a style, you will find death because style will completely kill the life itself. You have to look for life and then a style appears by itself. So I just try to make it like that. But also then the Iranian culture is very much based on the humor. We have always laughed, and if we did not laugh, I mean, given the horror that happened in this country, if we did not have the capacity of making jokes and laughing about the thing, I think all of us, we would be dead. So I think the more the situation is sad, the deeper the sadness is, and the more is subject, you know, of making jokes. Plus, you know, I mean, in a very narrative, you know, construction, you cannot create sadness over sadness over sadness. After a while, you know, people, they have an overdose of sadness, so it doesn't work anymore. So you need some moment of breathing by some jokes and things like that. And me, I know in my life, at least it is once per day that something really makes me laugh. And most of the time it's not very funny. The subject is not funny, but it's so absurd that what can you do but laughing?
Thank you. Another viewer says, do you have a favorite day among Nasser Ali's reflections in the film? Each one was beautiful and creative to me, but I think I like the fifth day best with the scenes with his mother and the smoke.
It is also, you see what I'm doing? Yes, with the mother and the smoke, it's that. That was in my family, that they always said that the cigarette was the food for soul. And I really do believe that. I know that now, you know, I should not smoke and all of that, but I'm in my home, so nobody can get an indirect cancer from me. So as an adult, I think I have the right to do whatever I want with myself. Yes, I think also smoke is something extremely photogenic, you know, in cinema. I mean, imagine Humphrey Bogart without his cigarette. Imagine Lauren Bacall without her cigarette. I mean, all of that, you know, is this thing that, you know, this thing that you breathe in, you breathe out. You know, for a non-smoker, it's completely understandable. They find it disgusting, but it's very nice. Smoking is very nice. It really gives you a very good feeling. I mean, I know it's a drug, but drugs are supposed to give you happiness. That's why people, they take it. So yes, and I think it's something extremely photogenic with the smoke. Yeah, it's very, very cinematographic. So I think I agree with the viewer who said his favorite day was the 5th, because probably mine too.
Thank you. Another viewer writes, do you think love exists over time? If Nasser Ali had married Iran, do you think they would have been any more inspired or content with their lives? If he had married her, would his music have been affected negatively since it was part of the source or pain of his being able to grasp the sigh from midair?
Well, the only love story that remain in the history that are the ones that are unfortunate and they don't finish well. Imagine Romeo marrying Juliet. Would it be any Romeo and Juliet? Of course not. Romeo and Juliet, they would have 12 kids together, and then they would be shouting in Italian, and they would have argument and blah, blah, and nobody would talk about them. The only love story that remains is because it's tragic. Without the tragedy, it does not exist. It's like the myth of, Achilles. His mother tells him, you have two choices. Either you go, you die, and you become, you become eternal in the history, or you remain here and you don't die, and then you're just a man, and that's it. And Achilles decides to go, and he dies, and he becomes eternal, which is a choice that I can understand. Probably, since I know that, I do not believe that there is anything after death, I will go for the second choice myself much more easily, because, when you're dead, that I'm eternal or not, what does it change? I want to be eternal by not dying, not because I have a name or I have made books or whatever. But for the love story, I think one of the most important thing of the love story is actually that it's not a happy end. Otherwise, it's the life of everyone, with the boredom that it means, etc. Which does not mean that it's not love. This is love, but this is not. For having the story, you have to have a big dramatic reason. So if there is no dramatic reason, the life of the very happy people is not something nobody wants to see. Oh, they're happy, they grew up, and then they went to the university and they married and they had nice children and they lived all their life together and they died. Would anybody wants to watch a film like that? Not me.
Thank you. A viewer says, can you please discuss the goofy son who goes to the US and leads a silly life?
Well, I have seen that in my own family. This is it. I have, and by saying that, I'm measuring my words. I don't think that anybody, that goes to America, they have a goofy life. But I have seen in my own family people that completely changed, and they became people that I don't know, it seemed that they marry a new culture and they want so much to be part of this culture that they forget where they come from. Yeah, it's a little bit, it's like you have the American dream, and this is more like the American nightmare, I would guess. Yeah.
Thank you. Someone writes, out of all your novels and films, is there one that is most dear to you?
Yeah, it's Sugar with Plum. It is. It is because that is where as I say, where I put most of my soul. And this is, yeah, the novel is my favorite one, yeah. And that is the last one that I made. That is the last novel that I wrote. I think that I will continue writing, not under, a graphic novel form, maybe writing a book, but I reserve that for later because, for that, I can be just old and broken and I can sit and I can write. But, I have to reserve some stuff that I want to do for later, because otherwise, if I do whatever I like now, what will be my hope for the future? I need to have some hope for getting old.
Another viewer writes, one of the characteristic features of your work is its refreshing disbelief in human perfection, which is coupled with the ceaseless desire of the protagonist to improve the self. How would you define Nasser Ali's death within the context of your body of work?
No, he is completely right. The thing that has always interested me most, is the human perfection and this idea that the human being can be perfect. It doesn't work. If you look historically, the civilization, the moment of the history where they created most of the philosopher is the ancient Greece. Suddenly, in a place, within a time of, 200-300 years, you have all these philosophers, one after the other, one better than the other. And why, I always ask myself, why did the Greek, they created as many philosophers just like that in one go? And why this has not been created somewhere else? And I think the response of that is in the mythology of Greece and the Greek gods. The Greek gods, all of them, they're imperfect. They fart, they rob, they do everything. The only thing that makes them God is actually because they're eternal. This is the only thing, but they're imperfect gods. None of them, they're perfect. So if you have that for a God who is not a perfect thing, but is an imperfect thing, just eternal, not like you, I think it takes away a big weight that is on us with the monotheism, where, we have this perfect God that is only is only light and is only love. And we want to tend to become this God that we will never be able to become, because, we are human beings and we are imperfect because we are going to die. So, the time that we understand what life is about is already too late. The body is giving up, and then it completely gives up. My grandmother always used to say, the moment that you become completely, round, the moment that you can actually, roll in the life, and as soon as you become round and you become flat, and this is the end of it. So the imperfection is made out of that. And I think it's very important, to underline that, and like the human being with this imperfection, because otherwise it's an unachievable ideal. And the only thing that it will give is more frustration. And more frustration brings much more anger. It creates much more cruelty. It creates much more war. Accepting that we are imperfect actually is an open door to become more wise, because we are not in this quest of absolutely wanting to be this thing that we will never become. So yeah.
Thank you. There are two questions from two different viewers about influences on the film. One viewer asks, was Chicken and Plums influenced by the film Amélie? And another viewer asks, I'd like to know if the director is familiar with Golshiri's Shahzeh et Tejab, and whether she has been influenced by the novel. There are some striking similarities between the movie and the novel.
The Amélie, it's a very good example. I love the work of Jean-Pierre Jeunet. So, if that is kind of an affiliation between my work and his work, I can only take that as a huge compliment. So thank you very much if you think it. But of course, I'm influenced by the thing that I like. For me, the cinema has always been, to make the life more beautiful, bigger, better. Everything in cinema is much more beautiful. Love in cinema is much more beautiful than the reality, as is the war. The war looks much more beautiful in the cinema than in reality. In the reality, war is just a horror. So Amélie is a very good example of that. And Shahzeh Tejab, yes, is one of the big sources of inspiration for me. Not only the novel, but also the film that has been made by Bahman Farmanara. That actually they gave me like a white card of choosing 5 films that I have to present next week in a festival of cinema in France. And actually one of them is Shahzeh Tejab, like the way that he remembers how his cruel grandfather, how he did, with his family, and how he did himself with his wife, etc. Yeah, but these are the sources of inspiration. That said, it's something that is a source of inspiration because, I'm not made of plastic, and I live in this world. And of course, these are things that I have seen. And of course, these are things that are interesting for me, and they have an influence for me. But I never try, to look at somebody else's work and copy it on purpose, because without making it on purpose, I will copy other people's work that have been before me. It's normal. You can, I've grown up, I've seen paintings, I'm listening to some music, I've seen films, there are things that have really pleased me, and they have made the person that I have become. So I cannot deny that, there is some influence, but going on purpose and saying, oh, a tribute to this, a tribute to that. I hate when people, they make homage, because homage in reality is that you're lazy and you don't want to make the job. So you take somebody else's work, you copy it, and then you say, this is an homage. But for me, it's just laziness.
Thank you. A viewer asked, could you please discuss the daughter and her life?
Oh, the daughter and her life, that was my mom's cousin. And as long as I remember, she was a big card player. In my family, from my mother and my father's side, both, they like to gamble. Actually, I love to gamble too, but nowadays I don't have the time to gamble, but otherwise I could just sit and gamble the whole day. And I always remember, she was actually the daughter of this grand uncle. Now, the story is not true. I have made up, there are pieces of story in my family, and I have put all of them together around this story. But this cousin existed, who was a huge smoker, and she was always gambling and smoking, and she made one heart attack after one heart attack, and it was completely forbidden to her to do that. But I think she had a broken heart too, just like her dad. And she just kept on smoking and making heart attack, and eventually she died. She was even not 50. Yeah. So I always had, I always had maybe this romantic idea about these people that gambled with life, gambled with themselves. These people, they have, it seems that their heart is so broken that they're already dead, that they have nothing to lose. So they live the life that they want. And in some extent, I always try to live this way, because I think now at the age that I am, I have the feeling that, I made it up to this age. I think it's already great. So whatever will come after that is just bonuses. That from now on, I will live 1 year or 50 years or 20 years. Does not really change anything, because I have lived, I have the feeling that I have lived enough. And I think it kind of gives a liberation. Not caring about what is going to come is actually a liberation. So if the bonus is long, better. If it's short, it's still a bonus.
Thank you. I want to read a few comments from viewers. One viewer says, your wit and wisdom, your humility and humanity makes me, and I think all of us, proud of being a plum-loving Persian and a human being in these troubled times. Thank you for being. Another viewer writes, you are fabulous. And another viewer writes a comment and a question. It's inspiring to see the love and honesty you put into your work. Is there resistance to your narratives? And if there is, how do you deal with it?
It has always been resistance to whatever I have done. And I always thought, because I get, all this award and prizes and everything, in a very naive way, I thought that it's going to make my life easier. It never did. It never did, because, it's always, the question of, people, they put money, that, and then they want something back, and, they have an idea for themselves. And it has always been lots of resistance, and it has always been fight. But, the thing is that, I don't want to defend, my point of view, because I think it's the best, is that, I'm given to make an artistic work, and I can be shallow about everything else in life. I'm very, when it comes to the work, it has to be what I think is perfect, and that is what is good for narration. So if I'm convinced by it, and I'm the only one who is convinced by it, if you are 1,999, they're not convinced, and I'm the only convinced one, still I know that I'm right and they're wrong. I know it, because I made it myself. And, I'm open to listen. It's not like my point of view is the best, but there's sometimes I have conviction. And the way of dealing with it is exactly comes to the thing that I just said previously. If you consider that life is a bonus, and no matter what happens, who cares? Then it gives you, it puts you in a situation of strength. It's like, because, I never think that I have something to lose. Until I can do what I like to do, I have nothing to lose. Basically my way of dealing with the thing, I always ask myself 2 questions when it comes to big decision. The first question is that, are they going to be able to put me in jail? Okay, no. Can they kill me? No. So if I'm not in jail and if I'm alive, everything else is okay. I can take anything. So if this is my limit, it gives you lots of freedom. So this is my way of dealing with it. They can't put me in jail. They can't kill me. So whatever happened, happened. So let's go for the fight.
Thank you. A few viewers are asking about transitioning your novel to a film. One viewer says, how long did it take to write the book initially, and what made you decide to create an actual movie with real people versus Persepolis? And another viewer says, much has been written about the difficulty of turning words into images. What about turning your kind of novel into a film?
So for the first question, it take me about 1 year to write a book, because, it's not whatever I write is great. And, I like to write, like I write stuff and then suddenly it's not good. So I have to start over and over and over. So it takes a while before, it becomes, it becomes something. So how do I make the transition between this to the film? That was the question, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I actually, by thinking a new narration, and why didn't I make an animation film? Is it because I don't like to make animation film? Animation film is long. You have to be a marathonian. You have to be able to run a marathon. I'm not able to run a marathon. I am very good at 100 meter, 200 meter, let's say 400 meter. Like something explosive, it goes fast, blah, and then I arrive. That I can hold it. But 42 kilometers is far too much for me. The reason I made an animation for Persepolis is that I thought to make it the most international possible, so people, they will understand it. It has to be drawing. Why? Because it's something in the abstraction of the drawing that makes that if anybody can identify to a drawing. If you put a type of human being, put in a geographical place, people actually, they cannot identify with. Oh, she doesn't look like me. I don't know this geography. Oh, this is the story of this Middle Eastern. It's so far away from me. But people, they have no problem identifying to a mouse, Mickey Mouse or Donald Duck or whatever. They identify themselves very easily because it's abstract, it's a drawing. So this is why I made the animation. Once I made the animation, it was so long. So it was this one animation I made, and that was it. So for my goal has never been, to become an animator. I made an experience, and I don't think it goes very well with I'm a very impatient person. So, like if you're impatient and you want to make an animation, forget about it. It really cost me a lot, to make this film. So this is the reason why I didn't make it this way. And what was I made such a long answer. So at the time I make it, I forget the second question. So what was the second question?
The second question was, much has been written about the difficulty of turning words into images. What about turning your kind of novel into a film?
Well, the thing is that I am a person of image. I've always been a person of image. That's why, I did not write straight books. That's why I wrote graphic novels. So for me, everything goes with the image, to the extent, that I remember many years ago, they asked me to write, like a story for the radio that they played. And I heard it, it was nice, but, I could not, just the hearing was not enough. I am a person of image. So for me, it's not very difficult to put the image on the thing. So it's very natural. So yeah, it's my work actually.
A viewer writes, comedy is language sensitive, even culture based. Are you as much at ease in Persian as in French in your comedy?
Oh, yeah, I think so. Persian is a very nuanced language. You have lots of nuances in one, and it's the imagery of the Persian language is completely unreal, and the jokes, they're unreal. Yes, a good laughter. Nothing makes me laugh more than an Iranian joke, because it's something that I really feel with all my heart. It's a little bit like Iranian food. The only time that I feel that I have really eaten well, that I'm not hungry anymore, is when I have the Persian food. Otherwise, I have eaten, but I don't have this satisfaction at the end. I don't know. It's something, it's always, I'm a little bit hungry at the end. With the Persian food, I never have this problem. But comedy is the most difficult thing to do. I will say why. Because, in language, we have different level of language. For example, I would say, oh, table, chair, phone, whatever. I talk about object. Everybody understand. Then I talk about instinct, me hungry, thirsty, this, that. Everybody understand. then the human being around the world will all cry for the same reasons. Is the same for everyone. Oh, you know, my mother is dead, my father is sick, I lost my lover, my child like this. We all cry for the same reason, but do we laugh for the same reason? No. Laughter is based on something completely abstract, is a exercise of the brain, is a posture of mind. So it's very difficult, you know, to make something that make laugh people that are not from your own culture. Because you always have, you know, you have jokes, you know, for example, that belongs to a family and then to a village. And then you have this jokes of San Francisco, and then you have Californian jokes, and then you have American jokes. But then you have Charlie Chaplin that actually talks to everyone. The time that actually I can make something that makes laugh other people that does not necessarily come from my culture, I have the feeling that I have touched their soul, because the humor is the height of the understanding of the other one, is the humor. The second you laugh with someone, it's impossible that you're scared from this someone. The humor is, you know, the key to stop the war. If we could actually laugh all of us together, I think we could be better. But yeah, that's it.
Thank you so much for a wonderful conversation. We're just about out of time, but I want to ask one last question with the last few minutes that we have. Can you tell us a bit about what this unusual year has been like for you as an artist, or maybe say a few words about your ongoing work or any upcoming projects that you can tell us about?
Well, it was a lockdown in France, and it does not create any kind of creativity in me, like none, because I finally understood that, you know, as misanthrope as I look to be, you know, and I enjoy my own company and all this thing that I'm saying, is actually the source, the thing that actually makes me want to create something is the emotion that I feel. Now, this emotion I have in by seeing the people, by watching them, by observing them, by listening, you know, pieces of their conversation, by looking at somebody's hair, you know, the way they walk, the way they get dressed, you know, the way they hold their bag, all of that is source of emotion for me. And without this emotion, for me, it's impossible to create. So this 2.5 months of lockdown in France, you know, when I was going, it was nobody in the street. So as beautiful, you know, as, you know, Paris architecture is, after all, it's just architecture, it's just stone. I cannot become emotional seeing a stone, you know, as beautiful as it is, it gives me a first emotion, but it does not go further. I'm not sitting the whole day thinking about, oh, how this stone feels, what is the name of this stone, what is the profession of this stone. I don't do this thing. So it was like complete, it cut everything in me. But I accumulated lots of frustration, lots of it. And the moment it opened, suddenly, you know, I started, you know, for a long time, I did not write a script, you know, a screenplay. So now I'm writing a screenplay in which you have lots of interaction between people. And I finished, you know, finally finished all my paintings. I have my exhibit the 8th of October in Paris. So, but creation for me, I don't think that is the case of everyone, but has always come, you know, from some kind of acidity in the stomach. It's the frustration that I want to create something. If I'm just happy, you know, basically the day the sun is shining, that I'm happy, you know, I go outside, I buy myself a skirt, you know, I have a drink with friends. I'm not like, oh, I need to write a book or a screenplay, etc. So it had this advantage of doing that. That say, I think, I found it a little bit indecent, all these people that were talking about how creative they have become, etc., etc. You know, when people, they're dying, people, they become depressed, people, they're losing their jobs. I mean, you know, the situation of today is really bad, is really, really, really bad. I mean, not only you have the pandemic and the health crisis in one hand, and then the way, you know, people, they benefit from that, and the way, you know, like the politics, they're dealing with that, and all the populistic movement that comes out of that is not a very good indicator for our future. I think we have to be extremely, extremely careful about what is going to happen. So I don't think that the world of tomorrow is going to be very different. Frankly, I think the world of tomorrow is going to be the same world, a little bit less good, because people are going to be more poor, and it's going to be more of populistic government, and populism nationalism. Nationalism equal war. People, they have to understand, it's not because you're born somewhere that all the other countries are just shit, it's not, you have people that have the right to love where they're born. But, I never understood, these people, they're proud of, like, I'm proud of being French. I'm proud of being American. I mean, what have we done to be the people that we are? We're just born somewhere. We can be proud of the thing that we have achieved, I'm proud of having become a good person, or, I'm not a nasty person, or I try to be kind to people. These are the reasons you can be proud of. But you cannot be proud because, your parents made you in a geographical place. But yeah, unfortunately, all these problems are going to, I think they're going to become bigger unless, we try to be more intelligent, and we try to be more compassionate and having more empathy for the other one. But that is another story.
Thank you so much. Thank you for taking the time to talk with us. This was a wonderful conversation. I know we're very much looking forward to your future works, and we hope to host you again in person, preferably. Thank you to the viewers.
I prefer to come in person, really.
Perfect. We'll keep our fingers crossed. Thank you, everyone. This conversation was recorded. We will post it on our YouTube channel in a few weeks, and we hope to see you all soon. Thank you again, Marjane.
Thank you.
Bye.